Hyunwoo Park looked at the strange document on his desk for the third time that morning. The paper felt different under his fingers, almost alive, and the words seemed to shift slightly when he wasn't looking directly at them. He had been Earth's top environmental scientist for 15 years, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. The invitation had arrived 3 days ago through channels so secure that most world leaders didn't even know they existed. It bore 17 different alien languages, each written in flowing scripts that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. The English translation was perfect, almost suspiciously so. The Galactic Council extends its gracious invitation to the representatives of Terra to join the Assembly of Civilized Worlds, he read aloud to his empty office. We welcome your species to the greater community of peaceful beings who have transcended their primitive origins. Hyunwoo frowned at that last part. Something about it felt odd, like there was meaning hidden between the words. But the United Nations translation team had gone over it dozens of times. They assured him it was just formal diplomatic language. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. So-young Kim entered with her usual confident stride. Even in civilian clothes, she carried herself like the Special Forces officer she had been for 12 years. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes held the sharp awareness that came from years of dangerous missions. "Still reading that thing?" she asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. "You've been staring at it all week. Can you blame me?" Hyunwoo held up the document. "This is first contact with alien civilizations. Do you know what this means for science, for humanity?" So-young smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know what it means for security. We're walking into a room full of unknown species with unknown capabilities. The military briefings I've been getting paint a very different picture than your scientific enthusiasm." "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, lowering her voice even though they were alone. "The preliminary intelligence suggests these aliens are cautious about us. Very cautious. Some of the intercepted communications show they're nervous about having humans at the council." "Nervous? Why would they be nervous?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." So-young pulled out her own copy of the invitation. "Look at this again. Really, look at it. The formal language, the emphasis on peaceful beings and transcending primitive origins. It sounds like they're trying to convince themselves we belong there." Hyunwoo read through it again, this time with So-young's words in mind. She had a point. The invitation did seem unusually focused on peace and civilization, as if those concepts needed special emphasis when dealing with humans. "Maybe they're just being careful," he suggested. "First contact protocols and all that." "Maybe." So-young didn't sound convinced. "But I've been in enough tense negotiations to recognize when someone's trying to manage a dangerous situation. This feels like that." Before Hyunwoo could respond, his secure phone rang. The caller ID showed Director Chen from the UN's new Alien Affairs Division, Ambassador Park. Director Chen's voice was tight with barely controlled excitement. "I hope you're ready. The transport arrives in 6 hours." 6 hours? Hyunwoo looked at his calendar. "I thought we had another week to prepare." Change of plans. The council moved up the meeting. They want to assess our representatives as quickly as possible. Again, that odd choice of words that seemed to carry hidden meaning. Assess us? Standard. Diplomatic protocol, I'm sure. Listen, both you and Attaché Kim need to be at the launch facility in 3 hours. Full diplomatic dress, complete cultural briefing packets, and remember everything we discussed about proper behavior. The line went dead. Hyunwoo stared at the phone, then at So-young, who had heard every word. Assessment, she repeated flatly. They want to assess us. That's military language, not diplomatic language. You're reading too much into it, Hyunwoo said, but he was starting to feel uneasy too. They probably just want to make sure we understand their customs. 2 hours later, they stood in the government transport heading to the classified launch facility. Hyunwoo wore his best diplomatic suit, the one he had worn to address the UN General Assembly about climate change. So-young was in her dress, military uniform, her ribbons and decorations creating a colorful display across her chest. Did you read the cultural briefing? She asked, flipping through the thick packet they had been given. Most of it. Standard stuff about respecting alien customs, not making sudden movements, speaking carefully. Hyunwoo paused. Though some of it seems oddly specific, like this part about not mentioning Earth's weather patterns or discussing human physical activities, or this section about avoiding references to human history, especially anything involving conflict or competition. So Young looked puzzled. What kind of species are we dealing with that we can't even mention sports or weather? The transport pulled through several security checkpoints before arriving at a facility that officially didn't exist. The launch pad held a ship that looked like nothing human technology could produce. It was smooth and organic looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. That's our ride, Director Chen said, meeting them at the entrance. The ship is fully automated. The aliens didn't want to risk any of their crew members for the pickup. Risk? Hyunwoo caught the word immediately. What risk? We're diplomats. Director C. Chen looked uncomfortable. Poor choice of words. They're just being cautious with their technology. But So Young was studying the ship with her trained eye. Look at the design, she said quietly to Hyunwoo. See those features along the sides? Those aren't decorative, that's armor plating. This isn't a diplomatic transport, it's a military vessel disguised as one. As they approached the ship, a section of the hull simply dissolved, creating an opening. No ramp, no airlock, just an entrance that appeared as if the ship's body had decided to let them in. Inside, the ship was even stranger. The walls seemed to pulse gently, like breathing, and soft light emanated from everywhere and nowhere. The seats molded themselves to their bodies as they sat down, and the moment they were settled, the opening sealed itself. Well, Hyunwoo said, trying to lighten the mood. No turning back now. The ship lifted off so smoothly they barely felt it move. Through the transparent sections of the hull, they watched Earth shrink below them. Within minutes, they were in space, accelerating toward a destination they could only guess at. I've been thinking about the translation, So Young said as they traveled. What if there were errors? What if things got lost between their language and ours? The UN's best linguists worked on it. They even had help from the preliminary alien communications. But what if the aliens were already working from wrong assumptions about us? What if their first impressions were somehow skewed? Hyunwoo considered this. It was possible. First contact was full of unknowns. Maybe the aliens had misunderstood something about human nature or capabilities. Maybe they thought humans were more primitive or aggressive than they actually were. We'll just have to show them who we really are, he said. Peaceful, intelligent, ready to join the galactic community. The ship's walls chimed softly, and a voice spoke in perfect English with no accent they could identify. Passengers, we are approaching the council station. Please remain seated. External viewing will be activated shortly. The hull around them became completely transparent, giving them a full view of space. Ahead of them, growing larger by the minute, was a structure that defied imagination. It looked like a small moon, but clearly artificial, covered in lights, and docking bays and structures that seemed to shift and move on their own. My God, Hyunwoo whispered. How many species must be represented there? According to our briefings, 47, So Young said. But she was studying the station's defenses, because there were defenses, lots of them. Weapon platforms disguised as communication arrays, shield generators built into decorative elements, and patrol ships that moved in patterns that spoke of military precision. As their ship approached a docking bay, they could see other vessels. Some looked like living creatures, others like geometric puzzles, and a few that seemed to be made of pure energy contained in force fields. Each one was different, representing the unique evolution and technology of its creators. Are you nervous? So Young asked. Hyunwoo thought about it. Excited mostly. This is the chance of a lifetime. We're about to meet the galactic community, share knowledge, learn about civilizations that have existed for millions of years. What about you? Honestly, I feel like we're walking into an ambush. She looked at him seriously. Promise me something. If things go wrong, if these aliens turn out to be hostile, don't try to be diplomatic, just run. You're being paranoid. I'm being careful. There's a difference. Their ship settled into the docking bay with the same smooth motion it had used for everything else. Around them, they could see alien workers moving with various purposes, but all of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the human ship. Even from a distance, Hyunwoo could sense tension in their movements. They're watching us, So Young observed. Of course they are. We're the new species. They're probably as curious about us as we are about them. But as the docking procedures completed and their ship pier, the council chambers were massive beyond anything Hyunwoo had imagined. The ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into darkness, and the walls curved away in all directions, creating a space that seemed to go on forever. Hundreds of beings, from dozens of different worlds, sat in sections arranged by species, each group occupying seats designed for their unique body types. Hyunwoo and So Young stood at the entrance, suddenly feeling very small and very alone. The lighted path led to two empty seats at the bottom of the chamber, positioned where everyone could see them clearly. As they walked down the long ramp toward their designated area, every conversation in the massive room stopped. The silence was so complete that their footsteps echoed despite the soft material covering the floor. Hyunwoo could feel hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other alien sensory organs focused on them. His diplomatic training told him to smile and appear confident, but So Young's earlier warning about their greeting made him hesitate. Just act natural, So Young whispered. Whatever natural means in this situation. They reached their seats, which adjusted themselves automatically to human proportions. The moment they sat down, a being near the center of the chamber stood up. It was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal with light flowing through its transparent body in complex patterns. "Welcome," the crystal being said, its voice coming from everywhere at once, like music played through the chamber's structure itself. "I am Jin-A, speaker for the Crystal in Harmony. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we acknowledge your arrival." Hyunwoo noticed the strange pause before acknowledge. In diplomatic language, that usually meant something significant, but he couldn't figure out what. "Thank you for this opportunity." Hyunwoo stood and gave a small bow, the way his cultural briefing had suggested. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo Park, representing Earth and humanity. This is Military Attaché So Young Kim. We are honored to be here and eager to learn about your civilizations." The crystal being's internal light flickered in what might have been surprise. "You speak of honor and learning. This is unexpected." "Unexpected?" So Young asked, standing beside Hyunwoo. "We've been preparing for this meeting for months. We studied every piece of information available about the Council and its member species." A new sound filled the chamber like wind through trees, but with a rhythm that suggested communication. From a section filled with what looked like floating clouds of gas, a voice emerged. "Studied. Learning. These concepts are unusual for a species of your classification." "I'm sorry," Hyunwoo said, confused. "Our classification?" Jin-A's light patterns shifted to what looked like agitation. "You are from Terra, third planet of the Sol system, a class Tudin Deathworld. Your species evolved through constant warfare with your environment and each other. These facts are well documented." "Deathworld?" So Young's military training kicked in and her posture shifted slightly. Several species in the chamber reacted immediately, making sounds of distress. "Please," Jin-A said quickly, her light patterns now cycling rapidly through colors. "No aggressive postures. We understand this may be your natural state, but it causes distress among the peaceful species." So Young looked down at herself, baffled. She was standing normally, hands at her sides. "I'm not being aggressive. This is just how I stand." A collection of six-legged beings in one section began making chittering sounds that the chamber's translation system rendered as panicked discussion. Hyunwoo caught fragments. "Predator stance, ready to strike, apex hunter." "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Hyunwoo said carefully. "We're not warriors or predators. I'm a scientist. I study Earth's climate and ecosystems. So Young is a military attaché, yes, but she's here for diplomatic security, not combat. The word combat caused a visible reaction throughout the chamber. Beings drew back, made distressed sounds, or in the case of one species, literally disappeared into what seemed to be pocket dimensions. You admit to military functions, Janae said, her voice somehow managing to sound both musical and terrified. And you study your world's hostile environment for survival advantages. No, that's not. Hyun-woo paused, trying to understand how his words were being interpreted. I study climate change to help protect people from natural disasters. Environmental science is about making life better for everyone. You manipulate planetary weather systems, the gas cloud being said. You control your world's environment to suit your species' expansion. We don't control weather, So Young interjected. We're trying to stop the damage we accidentally caused. Climate change is a problem we're working to solve, not a weapon we created. The chamber erupted in sounds of distress. The translation system was working overtime, but Hyun-woo caught enough to understand that the aliens thought humans had weaponized their planet's climate, and were now attending the council to discuss expanding that capability to other worlds. Please, everyone calm down, Hyun-woo said, raising his hands in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Half the chamber's occupants made sounds of alarm, and several species activated what were clearly defensive barriers around their seating areas. Threat display, something that looked like a walking tree said. Showing claws and reach, classic intimidation behavior. Hyun-woo looked at his raised hands in confusion. These aren't claws, they're just hands, and I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. Your species uses those appendages to manipulate tools and weapons, Ginny said, her light patterns now a rapid cycle of what could only be fear responses. The documents show humans can throw objects with lethal accuracy across great distances. Well, yes, humans are good at throwing things, So Young said, but that's just basic coordination. We play sports that involve throwing balls. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, heavier, more dangerous. Sports, the tree being said slowly. Your species engages in recreational warfare. What? No, Hyun-woo said. Sports are games, competition for fun, like running races or throwing balls through hoops. Your species runs down prey and competes for territory, Jin-ae translated, her light patterns now a steady, alarming red. These activities are presented as entertainment. So Young was starting to understand what was happening. They think we're describing hunting behavior, she said quietly to Hyun-woo. Every time we explain something normal about humans, they interpret it as evidence that we're dangerous predators. But we're not, Hyun-woo protested. Yes, humans evolved as hunters, but that was thousands of years ago. We're civilized now. We build cities, create art, explore space peacefully. You construct territorial markers, display dominance through aesthetic expression, and expand into other species' domains. The gas cloud being said. This confirms all projections about human behavior. Hyun-woo sat down heavily, suddenly understanding the magnitude of the misunderstanding they were facing. Every aspect of human civilization, when viewed through the lens of species that had evolved as prey animals or peaceful herbivores, looked like the behavior of intelligent predators playing with their food. How do we fix this? He whispered to So Young. Before she could answer, a new voice spoke from a section of the chamber they hadn't noticed before. The beings there were small, covered in soft fur, with large eyes that looked designed for spotting danger. The humans show confusion, behavior, one of them said. This may be hunting strategy. Appear harmless before striking. We're not hunting anyone, So Young said, trying to keep her voice gentle. Look, I understand there's been a misunderstanding about our species. Yes, humans evolved on a dangerous world. Yes, we have capabilities that might seem threatening. But we're here peacefully. We want to learn, to share knowledge, to be part of the galactic community. Share knowledge of warfare and environmental destruction, Jin-ae said. We have studied your species' history, constant conflict, weapons that could destroy your entire world, expansion into space driven by resource depletion. You're not wrong. About our history, Hyunwoo admitted. Humans have done terrible things to each other and to our planet. But we've learned from those mistakes. That's why we want to join the council, to be better than we were. Evolution does not work that way, the tree being said. Predator species do not change their fundamental nature. They only become more efficient predators. So Young was quiet for a long moment, processing what they had learned. Then she spoke, her voice carefully controlled. What exactly do you think we are? Jin'e's light pattern slowed to a steady, pulsing blue. You are an apex predator species from a class Twithin Deathworld. Your planet's environment is so hostile that survival required the evolution of extreme aggression, tool use, and social cooperation for hunting. Your species achieved sapience not despite these traits but because of them. And you think we're here to evaluate the council species as potential prey or resources, the gas cloud being finished. Your presence here represents the greatest threat to galactic peace in recorded history. The chamber was silent again as the full scope of the misunderstanding became clear. The aliens hadn't invited humans to join the council out of friendship or scientific curiosity. They had invited them because they were terrified of what would happen if they didn't. So this whole meeting, So Young said slowly, the council declared a recess after what Jin'e diplomatically called initial communication difficulties. Hyunwoo and So Young found themselves in what appeared to be a social area, though social was relative when most of the other species were actively avoiding them. The space was designed to accommodate dozens of different alien needs. There were pools of various liquids for aquatic species, elevated perches for flying beings, and what looked like sandbox areas for creatures that preferred to burrow. In the center, a neutral zone provided basic seating and refreshment stations. I need to understand what we're dealing with, So Young said quietly as they approached a refreshment station. Every time we try to explain something normal about humans, they think we're describing weapons or hunting techniques. The problem is that from their perspective, we probably are, Hyunwoo replied. Think about it. We evolved on a world where almost everything was trying to kill us. They evolved on worlds where the biggest danger was probably running out of food or getting lost. A small furry creature approached the refreshment station near them. It looked like a cross between a rabbit and a teddy bear, with enormous eyes and soft, downy fur. When it noticed the humans watching, it froze completely, its eyes growing even larger. Hello, Hyunwoo said gently, smiling in what he hoped was a friendly way. The creature made a sound like a squeaky toy being stepped on and fell over backward, apparently fainting from fear. Your facial threat display was too intense, a new voice said behind them. They turned to see one of the gas cloud beings hovering nearby, keeping what was obviously a safe distance. The fuzzy ones are particularly sensitive to predator behavior. I was just smiling, Hyunwoo said, confused. It's a friendly expression. You bared your teeth, the gas cloud replied. Your species' dental structure is clearly designed for tearing flesh. The display of such weapons naturally triggers fear responses in prey species. So Young looked at Hyunwoo. Don't smile at anyone else. Noted. A tall, thin being that looked like it was made of jointed metal approached them. Its movements were precise and mechanical, but its voice carried emotion when it spoke. I am Minho of the Tentacled Peacekeepers, it said. I have been assigned to facilitate communication between your species and the Council. Perhaps you could help me understand your world better. Of course, Hyunwoo said, grateful to have someone willing to actually talk to them. What would you like to know? The records indicate that your young undergo survival training in hostile environments from an early age. Could you explain this process? Hyunwoo thought about it. You mean like summer camp? Summer camp, Minho repeated, somehow making the words sound ominous. Yes, explain this military training program for your juveniles. It's not military training, Hyunwoo said quickly. It's recreation. Children go to camps in the woods or by lakes during their summer vacation from school. They learn outdoor skills, play games, make friends. Outdoor skills, Minho said, his mechanical voice taking on what might have been horror. You train your young to survive in the wilderness without technology. Well, yes, but it's not survival training exactly. More like nature appreciation. They learn to start campfires, identify plants, maybe do some hiking. Fire creation and plant identification for food foraging purposes, Minho translated. And long-distance movement across varied terrain. So Young was starting to see the pattern. Every time we explain something innocent, you hear something military, because your species appears incapable of any activity that is not related to survival or warfare, Minho replied. Even your recreational activities are preparation for conflict. What about art? Hyunwoo asked. Music, painting, literature. Surely those aren't military activities. Minho's mechanical body made a sound, like gears grinding. Your species creates territorial markers through visual displays, uses sonic manipulation for communication and coordination, and preserves tactical knowledge through narrative structures. That's... Hyunwoo paused, trying to find a way to explain human creativity that wouldn't sound threatening. That's not what art is for. Humans create beautiful things because beauty makes us happy. We tell stories to share experiences and emotions. Emotional manipulation techniques, Minho said, used to maintain social cohesion within your hunting groups. So Young rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming on. Okay, let me try a different approach. What do your species do for fun? Fun? Minho seemed confused by the concept. Recreation. Entertainment. Things you do when you're not working or sleeping. We contemplate mathematical harmonies, Minho said slowly. We observe the movement of stellar bodies. We tend to our living spaces and ensure they remain orderly. That sounds... So Young caught herself before saying boring. Peaceful. Yes, peaceful activities are natural for civilized species, Minho agreed. What do humans do during non-productive periods? So Young thought about her own off-duty time. Well, I like to work out. Physical exercise keeps me in shape and helps me relax. The effect was immediate. Minho's mechanical body began making rapid clicking sounds, and several nearby aliens who had been pretending not to listen suddenly moved much further away. Physical exercise, Minho repeated, his voice now carrying what could only be described as mechanical terror. You maintain your body's combat readiness through regular training, and this activity provides psychological satisfaction. No, that's not... Well, okay. Exercise does keep me in good shape, but I don't work out to prepare for combat. I do it because it feels good. The endorphin release from physical exertion, a new voice said. They turned to see a creature that looked like a walking tree with bark-like skin and leaves growing from its head. We have studied your species' biochemistry. You derive pleasure from activities that simulate hunting and fighting. I lift weights and run on a treadmill, So Young protested. There's no hunting or fighting involved. You repeatedly lift heavy objects to increase your strength, the tree being said. You run at high speeds for extended periods to increase your endurance. These are clear adaptations for pursuit hunting and combat effectiveness. Hyunwoo tried to help. What about my work? I study climate patterns to help protect people from natural disasters. That's not military. You study your planet's weapon systems, the tree being said immediately. Weather manipulation has been a theoretical warfare concept among peaceful species for millennia, but no civilization has ever actually implemented it. We didn't implement it on purpose, Hyunwoo said desperately. Climate change is an accident. We burned fossil fuels for energy, and the carbon dioxide changed our atmosphere. We're trying to fix it. You created a planetary-scale atmospheric weapon as a side effect of your energy production, Minho translated, his mechanical voice somehow conveying awe and terror. And now you're refining the process for more precise implementation. That's not what climate science is. Then explain why your species' response to environmental damage is to study it more intensively, rather than simply stopping the damaging activities, the tree being challenged. Hyunwoo opened his mouth, then closed it. From an alien perspective, human behavior around climate change probably did look suspicious. Why would a species continue to study something they claimed was an accident unless they were planning to use that knowledge? Look, So Young said, trying a different approach. Let's talk about something completely non-military. Food. Humans enjoy cooking and eating together. Surely that's not threatening. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Every alien within, hearing range, made sounds of distress, and several activated what were clearly personal defense shields. Food, Minho whispered, his mechanical voice somehow conveying absolute horror. You bond through the consumption of other organisms. Well, yes, all species have to eat, So Young said, confused by the reaction. Civilized species consume synthesized nutrients or absorb energy directly from stellar sources, the tree being said. The deliberate killing and consumption of other life forms is unthinkable. But you must eat something, Hyunwoo said. How do you get energy? I photosynthesize, the tree being said, as if this should be obvious. Minho's species absorbs ambient electrical fields. The crystalline harmony feeds on harmonic vibrations in subspace. And none of you eat other living things. The very concept is abhorrent, Minho said. To deliberately end another organism's existence for personal gain is the ultimate evil. Only the most savage predator species would engage in such behavior. So Young stared at them. You realize that on most worlds, organisms have to consume other organisms to survive, right? That's how ecosystems work. On Deathworlds, perhaps, the tree being said. Civilized worlds develop beyond such primitive biological cycles. So when you heard that humans eat other animals, we assumed you were describing ritual consumption of defeated enemies, Minho said. The fact that you do this for basic nutrition makes it even more disturbing. Hyunwoo was starting to understand just how different human evolution had been from these species. You're all from worlds where life evolved without predation? Predation is a Deathworld phenomenon, the tree being confirmed. The idea that organisms would evolve to kill and consume other organisms is something we study only in theoretical xenobiology courses, usually as examples of how evolution. The emergency session convened 3 hours after the recess, but it felt like a military tribunal, rather than a diplomatic meeting. The chamber's lighting had been dimmed, and many species had activated personal defense barriers around their seating areas. Guard drones, previously hidden, now hovered openly throughout the space. Hyunwoo and So Young sat in their designated seats, but now those seats were surrounded by a containment field that hummed with barely contained energy. They weren't prisoners, exactly, but they weren't free to leave either. The council will now hear the emergency assessment of the human threat, Ginny announced, her crystal body pulsing with nervous energy. Xenobiologist Creeville Moore will present the findings. A new being materialized at the center of the chamber. It was difficult to look at directly because its form seemed to shift constantly, flowing between different shapes like living mercury. When it spoke, its voice changed pitch and tone with each word, making it sound like a chorus of different creatures speaking in unison. Honored representatives, the shifting being said, I have completed the preliminary analysis of the species called humans. The results are disturbing. A holographic display activated above their heads, showing what looked like a medical diagram of human anatomy. But the way it was presented made humans look like walking weapons systems. Observe the cranial structure, Creeville Moore said, and the display zoomed in on a human skull. The forward-facing eye placement indicates a predator species designed for tracking prey. The pronounced brow ridge provides protection during combat, and the jaw structure. The display highlighted human teeth, designed for both cutting and grinding, indicating an omnivorous hunter capable of consuming any type of organic matter. That's just how human anatomy works, Hyunwoo protested. Lots of species have forward-facing eyes and varied teeth. No, civilized species has this combination of features, Creeville Moore replied, its shape shifting to something more aggressive-looking. Forward-facing eyes are found only in predators. The ability to digest both plant and animal matter indicates a species capable of surviving in any environment by consuming whatever is available. The display changed to show human hands. Note the articulated digits with hardened tips. These appendages are designed for tool manipulation and weapon construction. The opposable thumb allows for precision grip strength sufficient to crush most organic materials. So Young looked at her own hands, trying to see them the way the aliens did. When she thought about it, human hands were pretty impressive. They could perform delicate surgery or strangle a large animal with equal ease. The muscular and skeletal structure is even more alarming, Elmore continued. The display showed human athletes in action, running, jumping, throwing. This species can move at speeds up to 35 kilometers per hour on foot, leap over obstacles twice their body height, and throw projectiles with lethal accuracy at ranges exceeding 100 meters. Those are just normal human capabilities, Hyunwoo said. Any healthy human can do those things. A wave of distressed sounds swept through the chamber. The fact that what they were seeing was considered normal for humans only made it more terrifying to species that considered fast walking to be dangerous exercise. But the most disturbing aspect, Elmore said, its shape now resembling something like a coiled spring, is the psychological profile. This species exhibits what we call persistence hunting behavior. The display changed to show marathon runners, their faces showing the exhaustion and determination of long-distance endurance. Humans can maintain pursuit of prey for hours or even days, Elmore explained. They do not rely on speed or strength alone, but on the ability to simply never stop chasing their target. No prey species in the galaxy has evolved defenses against this type of hunting because it requires a level of psychological obsession that is considered pathological in civilized species. We call it determination, So Young said, and we use it for good things too, like scientific research or artistic achievement. You apply predatory psychology to all aspects of your existence, Elmore agreed, apparently thinking this supported its argument. Even your recreational activities demonstrate this obsessive pursuit behavior. The display showed various human sports and competitive activities. To the alien audience, it looked like elaborate combat training disguised as entertainment. They compete constantly, Elmore continued. Individual against individual, group against group, always establishing dominance hierarchies and testing combat readiness. They call these activities games, but observe the physiological responses. The display showed humans celebrating victories and mourning defeats, their faces showing intense emotions. They derive psychological satisfaction from defeating others, Elmore said. This is classic predator reward behavior. The endorphin release from successful competition is identical to the neurochemical response their ancestors experienced when bringing down prey. It's just fun, Hyunwoo said weakly, but even he was starting to see how their behavior looked from the outside. Fun, Elmore repeated, its shape becoming more agitated. They describe combat preparation as fun. They enjoy activities that simulate warfare and hunting. Jinne spoke up from her section. What about their social structures? Surely, their civilization shows evidence of peaceful evolution. On the contrary, Elmore said, and the display changed to show human cities and infrastructure. Their social organization is entirely based on pack hunting principles. They form large groups for resource acquisition and territory defense. Their cities are fortified positions designed to control territory and protect resources from competing packs. Cities aren't fortresses, So Young protested. They're just efficient ways to organize large populations. Then explain why every human settlement includes defensive structures, resource storage facilities, and strategic positions for territorial control, Elmore challenged. So Young thought about modern cities, police stations, military bases, hospitals, food distribution centers, elevated positions for communication towers. When viewed through the lens of territorial control, they did look suspiciously like military installations. And their reproductive strategy, Elmore continued, demonstrates long-term planning for population expansion and resource consumption. They produce offspring continuously rather than in response to environmental abundance, indicating preparation for territorial conquest. We have babies because we love children, Hyunwoo said. It's natural biological behavior. For a predator species planning expansion, yes, Elmore agreed. Continuous breeding ensures a steady supply of new hunters while maintaining population pressure that drives territorial expansion. The display changed again, this time showing human history, but instead of art, science, and culture, It focused on wars, weapons, and conquest. Their historical development shows clear predatory expansion patterns, Crevelmore said. Constant warfare between competing packs, development of increasingly efficient killing technologies, and expansion into every available ecological niche on their planet. You're only showing the negative parts of human history, Yunwu protested. What about art, music, literature? What about medicine, science, philosophy? All evolutionary advantages for a predator species, Crevelmore replied without hesitation. Art and music are communication tools for pack coordination. Literature preserves tactical knowledge and successful strategies. Medicine keeps hunters functional longer. Science develops better tools and weapons. Philosophy justifies expansion and conquest through intellectual frameworks. The chamber erupted in sounds of distress as the aliens realized that even humanity's greatest achievements could be interpreted as predatory adaptations. This is insane, So-Young said, standing up abruptly. The reaction was immediate. Every defense system in the chamber activated, barriers snapped into place, and several species members actually teleported away. So-Young found herself surrounded by weapons that she hadn't even known were there. Please, Ginny said, her crystal body now pulsing rapid red patterns. No sudden movements. You are in a room full of prey species. Your threat displays cause instinctive panic responses. I'm not displaying threats, So-Young said, but she slowly sat back down. I'm just frustrated. Frustration in predator species often precedes attack behavior, Crevelmore observed. Note the aggressive posture, the raised voice volume, and the display of physical capabilities through sudden movement. Everything I do looks aggressive to you, So-Young realized. Because you are an apex predator, Crevelmore said simply. Every aspect of your being has been shaped by millions of years of evolution for hunting and killing. You cannot simply turn that off because you've achieved space travel. But we have turned it off, Hyunwoo insisted. Humans don't hunt anymore. We farm food, we live peacefully, we explore space for knowledge, not conquest. Farms are controlled. Breeding operations for prey species, Crevelmore countered. You have industrialized the process of raising and killing other organisms for consumption. This is not evidence of peaceful evolution. It's evidence of predatory efficiency. And space exploration? Jin-A asked. Scouting for new territory and resources, Crevelmore said. The fact that they sent military personnel alongside their scientist. The emergency session had been going on for 6 hours, and the mood in the chamber was growing more desperate by the minute. Representatives from 47 different species were debating whether humanity represented a manageable risk or an existential threat to galactic civilization. Hyunwoo and So-Young sat in their containment field, listening to their fate being decided by beings who saw them as walking weapons of mass destruction. The translator was working overtime as species after species voiced their fears about letting humans into the galactic community. The Hive Collective believes containment is impossible, a voice like buzzing insects declared. Predator species always find ways to escape restrictions. The ethereal consensus agrees, added a being of pure energy. Their expansion drive will eventually overcome any barriers we establish. Perhaps we could relocate them to an uninhabited system, suggested the tree beings. Somewhere they could develop without threatening other species. That's just postponing the inevitable, Jin-A said, her crystal body pulsing with agitated light. Eventually, they'll develop interstellar travel capabilities beyond what we can monitor. So-Young leaned over to Hyunwoo. They're talking about us like we're not here. From their perspective, we're not really people, Hyunwoo replied quietly. We're a problem to be solved. The debate continued, growing more heated as different factions emerged. Some species wanted immediate action to contain humanity. Others argued for a gradual introduction process with strict monitoring. A few suggested that humans might be useful as a deterrent against unknown threats from outside the galaxy. The humans could serve as our military force, suggested a species that looked like floating geometric shapes. We could direct their aggressive tendencies toward useful purposes. That would be like keeping trained killers as pets. The furry, rabbit-like creatures protested through their representative. Eventually, they would turn on us. It was at this moment, as the debate reached its most pessimistic point, that something unexpected happened. The chamber's main door dilated open, and a human walked in. But this wasn't another diplomat or military officer. This was a maintenance worker, wearing simple coveralls and carrying a tool bag. He was small and quiet, with gentle eyes and graying hair. His name badge identified him as Tae-jun. Tae-jun seemed completely unaware of the tense atmosphere in the chamber. He walked calmly toward a malfunctioning environmental control panel near the front of the room, humming softly to himself. It was a Korean folk song, gentle and melodic. The entire chamber fell silent, watching this new human who didn't seem to radiate the same threatening aura as the other two. Tae-jun reached the control panel and began working on it with practiced efficiency. His movements were careful and precise, but there was something fundamentally different about him. Where So-young's precision suggested military training, and Hyunwoo's movements showed the contained energy of an active mind, Tae-jun simply moved, like someone who was good at his job and took pride in doing it well. As he worked, he noticed some alien refreshment containers that had been knocked over during the earlier panic. Without being asked, he carefully cleaned up the spill, making sure not to damage any of the strange alien substances. When he was finished, he bowed politely to the nearest aliens, the small furry creatures who had been most afraid of the humans. "Sorry for the interruption," he said quietly in accented English. "The environmental system should work better now." One of the furry creatures, braver than the others, approached him cautiously. You are human?" "Yes," Tae-jun said, smiling gently. His smile wasn't the broad grin that had terrified them earlier, but something softer, more genuine. "I work on the station, maintenance and repair." "But you don't seem—" The creature paused, searching for words. "You don't seem dangerous." Tae-jun looked confused. "Dangerous? Why would I be dangerous? I fix things that are broken. That's my job." The furry creature studied him with large, cautious eyes. The other humans spoke of warfare and competition and consuming other organisms. "Oh," Tae-jun said, understanding dawning on his face. "You're scared of humans because you think we're all soldiers and hunters. Are you not?" Tae-jun sat down, cross-legged on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. Several aliens unconsciously moved closer, drawn by his non-aggressive posture. "I grow vegetables in my apartment," he said simply. "I like to read books about history and philosophy. I volunteer at the Children's Center on weekends, helping kids with their homework. I've never hurt anyone in my life." "But you are still human," the furry creature said. "You come from the Deathworld." "Yes, Earth is dangerous," Tae-jun agreed. "But danger doesn't make us dangerous. It makes us careful. It makes us work together to protect each other." He pulled out his personal tablet and showed them pictures. His garden, full of carefully tended plants, photos of him reading to small children, images of community volunteers working together to help elderly neighbors. "This is what most humans do," he said. "We take care of things. We help each other. We try to make life better for everyone around us." The chamber was still silent, but the quality of the silence had changed. Instead of tense fear, there was something like wonder. "But the other humans spoke of combat training and competitive activities," Ginny said, her light patterns showing confusion rather than fear. "So-young was a soldier, yes," Tae-jun said. "But soldiers exist to protect people, not to hurt them. And Hyunwoo studies the environment to help preserve it. These are good things that humans do. But your species evolved through predation and warfare," Krevelmore protested, its shape shifting uncertainly. "Yes," Tae-jun said. "And that taught us something important. We learned what happens when people fight each other instead of working together. We learned that cooperation is better than competition. We learned that taking care of the weak makes everyone stronger." He looked around the chamber at all the different species. "You evolved on worlds where cooperation was easy, where resources were abundant, where there were no predators to threaten you. You never had to learn that lesson the hard way. We did." "So humans choose to be peaceful?" asked Minho, his mechanical voice carrying something like hope. Most of us, yes, Taijun said. We choose to be peaceful because we know what the alternative costs. We've seen war and competition and predation, and we decided we don't want those things anymore. But what about your expansion into space? Asked the tree beings. Your drive to explore and colonize? Taijun smiled. We explore because we're curious. We want to learn about the universe and meet new friends. As for colonization, he gestured around the chamber. Look where I work. This station was built by dozens of different species all working together. That's the kind of expansion humans want, not conquest, but collaboration. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It was Yunji, the station's head of interspecies relations, who had been quietly observing the entire proceedings. Council members, she said, her voice carrying authority despite her small stature. I believe we have been making a fundamental error in our assessment. She moved to the center of the chamber, her movements confident but non-threatening. We have been analyzing humans as if they were still primitive predators, but we failed to consider something crucial. They evolved beyond their predatory origins, not despite their dangerous world, but because of it. Explain, Jinne said. Most species evolve civilization when their environment becomes safe and resource abundant, Yunji continued. But humans developed civilization while still living in one of the most dangerous environments in the galaxy. They had to become peaceful and cooperative while still facing constant threats. She activated a holographic display that showed human cities. But this time, the focus was different. Instead of showing defensive structures, it highlighted hospitals, schools, parks, and community centers. Look at their cities again, but this time consider them as cooperative structures rather than military installations. Those defensive positions are actually community gathering places. Those resource storage facilities are distribution centers that ensure everyone has what they need. Those territorial markers are art and culture designed to make spaces beautiful and welcoming. The chamber began to buzz with quiet conversations as aliens reconsidered what they had been seeing. Humans didn't become civilized despite being predators, Yunji said. They became civilized because they chose to stop being predators. And that choice was made not from a position of safety, but from a position of strength. You're saying they could be dangerous but choose not to be? Asked the gas cloud beings. I'm saying they're the first species in galactic history to consciously evolve beyond their biological programming while still retaining the capabilities that programming gave them, Yunji replied. They're not dangerous because they can't help it. They're safe because they choose to be every single day. Taijun nodded. We could hurt people if we wanted to, but we don't want to. We want to help people instead. So Young spoke up from her containment field. That's what I was trying to explain about my military service. I wasn't trained to attack people. I was trained to protect them. The same capabilities, used for completely different purposes. And my environmental research, Hyunwoo added. We study dangerous things so we can prodi.